Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Rebreak Radio. My name is Dennis, as usual, and today I'm joined by two new people. We got Oskar.
Hi guys.
So we'll get the introductions later. And then we got Freja.
Hi.
So Oskar, who are you?
Hello, I'm the teacher here at Indie Games Education, where Dennis is a student. And I'm mainly in charge of just making sure the place don't burn down. Other than that, I'm a big fan of more of the, fitting enough, indie games. And right now, I think one of my favorites is something like, oh god, what's the name of that one? This is not good. And the card game thing.
Which one?
Oh god.
Magic?
No, not that one.
Hearthstone.
Well, I do like board games as well. The one where you are deck building while you're going through a dungeon.
I think I know it, but I can't name it right now.
Oh.
Because of copyright read? No.
No, I don't. It's like Slay the Spire?
Yeah, exactly. Slay the
Yeah.
Spire. It's one of my favorites right now because I like the mixing of traditional, more like roguelike elements and like a board game.
What's your favorite game of all time?
That's really hard. I do have Symphony of the Night is of course like a huge inspiration. I love the more roguelikes and Metroidvanias is sort of my favorite genres probably. So that one has a near and dear place to my heart.
Cool. So Freja, who are you?
Hi. I'm Freja, and I am one of Dennis' classmates, but I also work within a few gaming projects as of the moment. I usually make art for them because that's the one thing I'm really good at. This is the first video game podcast I've ever been on, so I never really discussed video games before on a podcast.
What's your favorite game of all time?
My favorite game of all time is not the best game I know, and it's not the most influential game I know, but it would be Mother 2 Earthbound would be my favorite one. But
Good pick.
That's a good game.
Most influential one, I would say that at least the most influential one for the last 10 years would be Minecraft.
Cool. I don't really hear anyone say it's their favorite game of all time. So that's interesting. Cool. So let's today we're going to talk about the state of play and the indie world, which just happened. By the time this episode is out, the Game Awards will have happened, but we're going to talk about that in the next episode, so chill the fuck out. So yeah, let's start with State of Play, because it technically happened first. So, what did you guys think about the presentation?
Well, I think they did a good job. I mean, in general, most of the games were interesting, and they showed some of the fan favorites that people wanted to see. So I think they did a good job.
I'm really happy with the indie one, especially since I saw a lot of games that I really enjoyed. But when it came to the presentation of it all, I think that it shows, sadly, that a lot of the indie games are not the people that worked on the actual trailer setup. It's not that as professional as they perhaps are within the games industry. I think that a few animations still look a bit yank in some of the games, but I think that the PlayStation 1 was a little bit better.
Cool. So the biggest announcement in the State of Play was probably Resident Evil 3. Even though it was leaked beforehand, as I said while we were watching it, I haven't played Resident Evil. I played a little bit of Resident Evil Revelations, the demo on 3DS.
Yeah.
But I even get chills in that trailer because it's just cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I've obviously heard people talk about Nemesis and last or this year with Resident Evil 2, and everyone's talking about that. it's just a cool trailer. It's weird that they chose to go with a first-person viewport in the start of the trailer, even though I'm assuming they're following Resident Evil 2's
over the shoulder
influence from
which is follow-up on Resident Evil. What is it? It's not 6 and it's not 7. What is it? The first
Four?
one, that they chose to start making it first person shooter.
That was 7.
Oh,
That was 7.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they keep on going by that train because that game sold like a lot compared to the one before, which people thought was really bad. And then when they were gonna make a remake for 2, they went like, maybe we should keep on doing that thing that works. And
then they were like, no, let's just do like 4.
Yeah, and I mean, but I think 4 was a good midway point between like the more traditional like super scary, just slow pace kind of Resident Evils and the more like fast paced action ones. Then they sort of went too much the other way. But I think in general, I like the more like snug over the shoulder camera. Especially for me that's easily motion sick and stuff. I have an easier time playing those games than the full FPS ones.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit more spiritually connected to Resident Evil as well, to actually see your character, because it usually allows you to look behind yourself while you are running away from the big scary thing. If I am not able to see Nemesis when he's running after me down a corridor, slowly intimidatingly walking down a corridor, whilst I am running away because I know that I won't be able to beat that guy, then it kind of takes away a bit from it, according to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, this very quick turnaround after the Resident Evil 2 remake, especially because I believe the original Resident Evil 3 was also a quick turnaround from Resident Evil 2, because the game reuses a lot of assets from 2.
Yeah.
So 3 probably reuses assets from the remake of 2.
Very, very like spiritually in the spirit of the thing then. So that's good. But yeah, I think it's smart as well. Like
very, very different from the remake of Majora's Mask, which took like 3 years instead of 14 months or whatever it was for the N64.
Yep. Yeah, but I think it's interesting, and I think it's a smart decision as well, since people are, you see that they're like the new thing about reimagining or releasing more like high-def versions. I think it's a good way of getting new customers, but also having the nostalgia factor be a big draw to the game. So it's sort of like you get both aspects.
Yeah, I really like this approach to remaking a game, because if the game already exists, then why make it again? And in this case, it's like, we're able to influence something new, create something new, rather than just remake the game.
Yeah.
So it's cool, but at the same time, it's also like, why not make something entirely new? So it's like, it's in this very weird gray area, even though it's kind of cool. So
yeah, I mean, it's a super slippery slope. For example, because I know that, for example, the most talked about one, or the most hot potato one for me is, for example, the Final Fantasy VII remake, where you have like me as the one that's going to buy it based on nostalgia factor rather than like coolness. I'm really afraid that I'm gonna do like the Advent Children of it all and like remove all of the charisma and like cool small stuff that they've been like that was there in the game that made the game what it is, and instead do the more like super serious grimdark kind of a situation.
If there's no bathroom scene,
yeah,
I'm gonna be disappointed.
I want Cloud to ride on a dolphin.
Yes.
Or I'm out.
Yes.
Yeah. So But it's the same thing with those things. Like you have to tread. I think you have to tread carefully, because there's always a danger to either anger the current fans or to just make it so that it's not appealing to a new crowd, which both of them would probably be not a great thing. But I think so far it seems that Resident Evil is doing it the right way.
Yeah, I think what Resident Evil 2 did really well is that they took a game that already existed, and then they slapped Resident Evil 4 on it, which is the game that everyone loves more than anything. I haven't played it, but I want to play it, but at the same time I don't want to play it because I feel like I'm going to be disappointed because people hold that game onto what seems like an unrealistic standard.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing, I played it when it came out, and the biggest thing I will say is that so many games have used and like expanded upon the things that 4 did. So playing it now for the first time would be like, yeah, this is an inferior version of God of War. It's an inferior version of this and this and this because it influenced so much of like, it's yeah. So it's more like, it's the same thing I have with Lord of the Rings, for example. It's like, me personally, I read a lot of other fantasy stuff before I read Lord of the Rings, which means that for me it was slow plodding and like not enough fast-paced action or whatever. So I didn't really like Lord of the Rings when I read it.
You didn't get any big chunks to bite into
No.
any fiery moments. You did a bit too slow.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it could be like the same thing if you go back to something that was sort of like the instigator for a thing, then it sort of is probably a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, I had that experience when I watched the original Blade Runner because I wanted to see 2049.
Yeah.
So I watched the original Blade Runner and I did not like it whatsoever because that was an incredibly influential movie, and I feel like everything, like most of the things that I've seen before that, which was influenced by Blade Runner, I liked more than I did that movie. So
yeah, I think it's a dangerous thing, especially like in the games industry stuff, when you have like when you sort of have too much of a rose tinted glasses for things that were, because like they did a good thing by sort of introducing this thing, but then it's been built on so much. So it's like it's not current anymore. It was a great thing that it happened, but actually going back and playing it is not maybe the best idea.
In this era of remakes, in not only the gaming industry, but also in anything, the comics industry is doing it, the movie industry is doing it, the TV show industry is doing it. Everything is just making remakes of all things. I'm not saying that everyone is only making remakes of things, but I think that there's a positive and a negative about it. You can change the big old problems that you had back in the day. You can also just ignore the limitations that you had. But according to me, I like to see new things that are cool, and I am not that easily dragged in by the nostalgia factor. But I do realize that it's a massive marketing thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I like The Last Jedi more than The Force Awakens. It's why I like Revenge of the Sith more than The Force Awakens, because The Force Awakens feels like a remake of A New Hope, while The Last Jedi and even Revenge of the Sith they do something different and they try to be something else. Yeah,
but I think it's like, but that's also like within a franchise, because I think that's the thing that I think is dangerous, or why people aren't maybe as adventurous sometimes, is that, for example, from my point of view, as a parent, as someone has limited time, is that sometimes you want the nostalgia, you want to know what you're getting, because if you're going to spend like one of the hours or 2 hours of your life that you have like set out or set aside for this activity, then you sort of want to know that you're getting your time worth. In a sense. And I think if you're for example, when I was in university or stuff, then I had more like, okay, now I can like, it doesn't really matter, although some of the movies I watched was still like, I was really angry that I watched them, but but I mean, it's like you have more the ability to take a gamble in that sense.
I think that with how it's not that it's true, but people seem to be a lot more occupied these days than before, since now it's not only your job that is getting in the way. It's also your social life online and reading up on things online, because you can't just have it in a newspaper anymore.
Yes.
You need that direct info.
There's a lot of entertainment as well. So entertainment blocks other entertainment.
Yes.
For sure, 100%.
I think that is one of the reasons why franchising has become such a big thing, and why that is slowly starting to leak into everything else.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of like a brand. So, yeah.
So Resident Evil 3.
Back to that, yeah.
Anyone has anything more to say about that?
No, I think it looks cool.
It looks pretty cool. I mean, it could be pretty cool based on what they have done already with all the remakes. Sad to see, and it's not a over the shoulder camera view.
No, I think it is.
It is.
Okay. I think it was just a weird. That's the thing. I don't really know. I think it was just like a direction thing.
Yeah.
In the beginning, maybe it was like
maybe to reveal what's her name, Jill. Yeah, maybe to make her more like a you don't know what the game is, and then you sort of get the reveal of.
Because I think it was also like, oh, could this be Resident Evil 8?
Yeah.
Is it 3? Like they wanted to really like make people guess like what is this?
Yeah, I that's
think
the
it's
only
going
thing.
to. Yeah, I think because of this short turnaround, I think they are reusing everything from 2, so I think it's an over-the-shoulder shoot. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
It's coming out April 3rd, 2020, so it's not very far away.
No.
With a multiplayer attached.
Woo!
Yep. 4v1 multiplayer, which they are always interesting.
Yeah. At least, like from a design perspective, there's always like they're so hard to balance. So it's good to see like when they actually get one right. We'll see.
It could be really fun to see if they actually choose to have the multitude of Nemesis gene figures pop up. Like for example, of course we have Nemesis, which is the big old tyrant guy. But we can also have stuff from like Resident Evil 2, and we can have stuff from Resident Evil 4, and a bunch of that stuff. We can have a multitude of weird things that people from the enemy point of view could actually start to play. And I think that it could be really interesting to see what happens from that.
Yeah, and that will be included with Resident Evil 3. So, which I think is a very smart move. Because including it with 3 is a different thing than just making it free to play.
Yep.
Because free to play, that means someone has to go and download a separate thing. Yep. While here it's like, I guess it will be like, oh, here's the single player, multiplayer mode or something like that. And you're like, okay, yeah, I guess I can go.
I can try it out.
Yeah, I hope it's that way, and not that you have to download the multiplayer one as a separate game.
So yeah, let's talk about the next game, which was Babylon's Fall, which is the new game from Platinum.
Gotta love Platinum.
Yeah.
I thought it looked very generic, and I was like, the animation looked weird because he has like multiple swords, so it just looks like they didn't want to animate the other swords.
Yeah,
it looks like, weird.
Yeah, I mean. It's a Platinum game, so I'm always interested. I really like the
complex fighting games.
Yeah, they're really
more or
fun.
less.
Yeah.
But for single player structures.
Yeah, and I think they're great, and Platinum is like the masters at it. But it's like, I agree with you that it looks kind of boring.
It doesn't look like a Platinum game.
Yeah.
And it's kind of disappointing in the visual aspect.
Yeah, they're usually really out there.
Yeah, like really freaking out there.
Yeah.
I mean, to a sort of disturbing, that weird Japanese thing.
Yeah, like,
not to be like that, but...
Baby faces.
Yes, and
blowing up your dress.
Oh yeah. It will be that stuff. And it seems that they have gone away from that, and that I am happy about. However... I need that weird Platinum cheese.
Yeah, I agree.
That usually comes along with Platinum games. Because Platinum games are like, it's a motorcycle that has a stop and like 100 miles per hour.
Yeah.
That's the only two things that you can have.
Yes.
And as of now, that game looks like, as you mentioned earlier, Oskar, off podcast.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a bit of Dark Souls-ish thing.
Yeah.
And if it is this, corridor simulator sometimes, I would be kind of disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what they have when they announce more gameplay and stuff.
So, do you think this, because Platinum kind of makes two different games. They make like the Bayonetta, like more action focused games, and then they make like the Nier Automata action RPG games. So is this a pure action game or is this an action RPG?
Well, since they are contractors and not actually game designers, I think that this probably has a producer of some kind that made, I want the game to look like this, and it should be like this, and it has these looks, and it should play like this. And Platinum sits there, yeah, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Like they did with everything else.
Yeah.
Like, for example, with Nier Automata, when they sat there and they had made the game, and then that Yoko Taro, the guy that is actually the producer, just sits there and goes like, good job, guys. Otherwise, if you look at the other side of the spectrum, they worked on Metal Gear Revengeance, but they were not the first contractors to do so. They came in and looked at the game, and the game they worked on, or were supposed to be working on, was trash. Utter trash. And then they kind of saved it. And that's sort of where they earned their moniker from. Like that Platinum is that one games company that you always hire as contractors if you want a really good fighting system. And I don't know. I think that the cool red things from the back are cool, and that if you can like wield any weapon from any boss or like weapons that you otherwise could not see a tiny human person wield, could be pretty cool.
It's going to be interesting to see if it's more like a gimmick or if it's more like a gameplay mechanic. Like if it's something integrated into everything so you can sort of like steal enemy weapons or something. Based from the trailer, I have no idea though. I mean, the gameplay, moment-to-moment gameplay, it seemed like it could be more like a pure action game with maybe new weapon unlocks and stuff. I didn't really see anything that said like, oh, this is like a stats-heavy game or anything.
It could be really cool if this is like Platinum's stab at the Souls genre. Like,
I mean, it's for sure possible.
So next up is Predator Hunting Grounds, which is coming out April 24th, 2020, which is the next game from the creators of the Friday the 13th game, which they made with it. Have you heard the story of how that game happened? So around the same time, there were two Kickstarters, one for an official Friday the 13th game and one for a game called Summer Camp. Summer Camp was obviously the cooler game, and the official game was cancelled, and they took Summer Camp and they just made it an official Friday the 13th game.
Right. Nice.
This is also
That's
where Dead by Daylight was spawned. Not that it was made by the same guys, but the idea of it all was spawned from this.
So sadly, like I think it was last year, the creator, someone who was like related to the original Friday the 13th movie was able to grab the rights to the franchise, and he didn't allow the team at IllFonic to keep making the game. So the game had to be canceled. Well, it was out already, obviously, but like they weren't allowed to make any further changes to it. So now they got this deal with 20th Century Fox, so they're making this Predator game, and it seems like they actually have a budget this time because the first game was extremely buggy and Yankee. So this looks like a way better game.
Yeah, I think it shows that they learn a lot, and since they are like evolving on the genre they already are familiar with, it should be like a more technically proficient game at least.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I really love the franchise, the Predator franchise. I'm more not so much the Alien versus Predator stuff. That's sort of I'm more, as I said, more.
What's the story behind that? I don't know. Like why is there like Alien and Predator, and then
it's
they
just
did
there's these cool franchises.
Comics.
Yeah,
it's comics. It's always freaking comics.
Yeah.
It's comic crossovers. That's where all the stupid ideas of
so
versus comes from.
So Alien and Predator officially takes place in the same universe?
Yes.
Like, yeah, with some retconning, of course.
Yes.
It was sort of like, oh guys, we have this franchise that's sort of cold, we have this franchise that's sort of cold, but they have big like nostalgia factor. Let's like boop, mash them together and create some horrible movies.
Yeah, the same company made comic books for each one of these franchises, both the Predator and the Alien one. And then when that stuff expanded back in the day of the comic book era of the biggest penis measuring contest ever of I'm gonna make a bigger, badder thing. Like I'm gonna make the alien king and he's bigger than the queen and stronger than the queen and all that stuff. It's weird.
They have 4 tails.
Yeah, and that's the weird kind of stuff. But then people started to be like, we got the franchise, we got the things to make an Alien game. We also got the rights technically then to make a Predator game. Let's make a combination of them as well, because they have made those comics. However, we will also need to have multiple different types of enemies. So what they go with is the comic book stuff. And certain people who had just watched the movies of like Alien and stuff, they sit there like, what? Predators and aliens in the same thing? What? And they start to see these weird aliens that walks on all fours and have massive heads, and people freak out. And then none of these games got really popular except for like the really early ones.
Yeah, the first one, I think.
Yeah. And then they made a movie of them. And that's where most people got to know the Alien versus Predator franchise structure.
And I mean, it's an interesting thing, but it's sort of like they sort of, in my opinion, of course, they sort of taint the original intent of both franchises in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, the Predator one is, I think, the first and the second one that I'm most familiar with. They sort of, they have the almost like they sort of have the 1 versus 4 kind of a thing almost down. Like if you just make those movies into a game, that's sort of what you get.
Yes.
Since you have the military people who are really like stranded in an environment that they usually are the kings of, that they control, and then they have this ultimate foe that are sort of even more situated in that environment.
Which arguably the first Alien movie is also about.
Yeah.
But then later on, almost every single Alien movie except for the third, but let's not talk about that one, becomes swarm-based, more or less. Since then it's like, 100 goddamn aliens on this space station. Ooh, super scary.
Yeah, I think the fun stuff with the Predator franchise specifically is like that you always have the hunter becomes the hunted kind of a thing going on where like, you were the top dog, but now you're sort of just the prey. And that's sort of an interesting twist to see like these huge military hunks getting like penned in and like really threatened.
Speaking of that, I wonder how they will actually design the marine structure, like when you play humans. How will that work in this game?
I didn't really catch it. Is there like are there military personnel? The humans?
I don't remember, but I feel like this game could be a lot more fun than Friday the 13th, because in Friday the 13th it's only really fun if you play as Jason.
Yeah.
And I think it could be fun playing as either side.
Hopefully you'll have it so that, like, as Predator, you're stronger, but you still have to be intelligent and smart, because otherwise you can get to a position where you're
probably also pretty limited to which weapons you use. The two only ranged weapons we've seen is like the shoulder blaster, and that is presumably a limited resource weapon. And then you have your chakram, which is mainly a melee weapon, but you can throw it. But when you throw it, it's a guided projectile. So then you probably can't move while you're doing that.
Could be.
So you're probably the melee guy, and they are probably the guys with guns.
Yeah. I mean, stealth will of course play a big role. But.
So yeah, it's coming out April 24th, 2020. They also, the entire thing introduced with Untitled Goose Game coming to PlayStation 4
Heck yeah.
December
Yay.
17th.
Honk honk.
Yes. It's a fun game. I played it on Switch, so I recommend it. But you should probably get it on Switch.
Exactly. Yeah. Got it and go.
So, Dreams Will Steal Your Heart. It's gotta be the Kingdom Hearts thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I'm
the
guessing.
expansion for Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, there's an expansion for Kingdom Hearts
Yay.
coming out on Valentine's Day.
And none of
year,
us here
so-
on this podcast as of the moment are that big of fans of
Yeah,
that
no.
series.
I just see like a lot of boyfriends and girlfriends being frustrated on Valentine's
Yeah.
Day next year because their significant other is sitting and playing Kingdom Hearts.
Amazing. Yeah. Good timing, guys.
Yeah. The next thing, which I will let Freya talk about basically all by herself because I don't know anything about this game, Spellbreak.
Okay, you guys know Fortnite? No, but yeah. So in the battle royale scene and stuff like that, we at first got the big old battle royale, which was PlayerUnknown's battle royale, and previous games on that got their name from the battle royale movie series. But anyway. So how do you expand upon that idea? Truly, like 100 people versus each other in a big old arena, and you just blah 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 kill each other. My favorite battle royale game is Tetris 99, but that's another thing to discuss at some other point. This game is pretty cool in the sense that instead of just picking up a bunch of weapons, you have Magica style, 2 different elements of magic, be it poison, ice, lightning, wind, fire. There's a bunch of them. And you have a left gauntlet and you have your right gauntlet. And depending on how you use these, you can combine different spells into different types of other spells. Like, for example, any combination of the flame and the ice one will create steam. Any combination of the wind one and the poison one will create really big poison clouds. And that is an entire game not focused on just gun disguised as spells. It's focused on mobility, which is a thing I personally feel that almost all battle royale games lacks. Like actual thoughts of mobility. Because
they're mostly based on the like modern military shooter genre, which is more like it's more positioning and sort of that.
I was so sad when Apex Legends thing came out and they removed all the interesting gameplay mechanics from Titanfall.
Titanfall is a really good example of a really good shooting game, and why that would make a good battle royale game is because it has the rock paper scissors structure. Instead of wall counters bullet, which is most battle royale games, it has wall counters bullet, momentum counters wall, because you can just run around it or you can leap over it or whatever. And that is a thing that could be seen in Spellbreak, since a lot of the spells that you can use allows for momentum and allows for new types of movement.
More traversal. I would guess that sort of like having you get more verticality as well.
For example, one spell that you can have is rocks, and rocks is more or less you can break the earth underneath you and whatever, but you can also do stuff like, for example, throw a massive boulder things. And throwing the massive boulder with ice creates an icy field around it, allowing you to easily skate over it. So you could just lob boulders of ice along a road and just quickly escape.
I saw that in trailer. That looked really cool, like the skating element as well. Having like different traversal and possibilities. I think it could be really interesting.
And it can turn like a slightly angled surface from a slightly angled surface to a ramp, and now you can just leap across it into another building. It's a super cool idea that actually allows things to counter just hiding behind wall, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, and a bit more fast-paced, I guess, than something like Fortnite.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about, like, I'm just like sad about the fact that we don't get a battle royale with huge titans.
Yeah.
Like imagine like the last like few people in Apex Legends, if you had the Titanfall mechanics, people would just have titans and would be punching each other with huge titans. It would be great.
That would be awesome.
Mech battle.
Yeah. You can never go wrong with mech battles.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, Spellbreak looks. It's not my kind of game, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
Looks unique. Is it already out on PC?
I don't know actually.
It's coming out on PS4 at least, early 2020.
Cool.
So the next one is Superliminal, which is a really crazy, weird game.
It's so cool.
Yeah. I don't even want to consider how they actually programmed that thing. It's breaking my mind.
Yeah, so I don't. It looks like a Portal wannabe in a lot of ways, but they at least have this very interesting gameplay mechanic, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Yeah. But it's cool. Like you just grab any object, and then you can make it larger or smaller.
Yeah. And it's sort of also like the storytelling style is almost like a Stanley Parable kind of the feeling you get of the game, this surrealistic kind of horror mixed with
like the realization horror.
Yeah.
The realization horror genre is, when anything looks normal, but in the end you realize, oh no, that meant this.
Yeah.
From what I gather from it, you are some kind of telekinetic or psychic person or whatever, and
it almost seems like a coma thing or something that you have to wake up from something.
Or something. Like, you have these mental superpowers to make stuff weird, and they don't know where you are. So, according to that,
I don't know. Yeah, it's like it seems like this perspective shifting is sort of. It seems like a dreams kind of a thing where you're sort of influencing the world. I don't know. It looks really interesting.
Looks really cool.
Yeah.
I always love games that have gameplay focused evolution, like when things breaks the boundaries of certain things.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed that it had like a really interesting sort of like out of the box thinking necessary, so you sort of make something bigger, so you can crash through the floor, so you can get sort of more like it's not your standard just how to solve a puzzle, kind of here's your puzzle box and then do whatever it says. It's more like exploratory in that sense. Like, oh, I'm gonna see what happens if I do this, make this bigger or smaller, or it seems like much more like a playground sort of a puzzle game.
So, and next up is Paper
When
Beasts.
is it coming out?
It just says coming out to PS4, so
okay.
There's no date.
Sometime.
So yeah, next up was Paper Beasts. It's an ecosystem game for PSVR, which it looks cool, but I don't want to play it.
It looks
Physics
like
demo.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a tech demo. It's sort of no. Why do I want to, like, when he connected the animal to the weird thing?
These creatures are made out of paper, so when they touch the wet stuff, they can't walk.
Look, I made a road of sand up this hill. Now you can walk on. Why?
And also, like, after you've seen such a revolutionary VR experience in new Half-Life, like this looks old.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, obviously, but like. That's kind of the same thing happened when Mario 64 came out. Same thing happened when the iPhone came out. Like there's a monumental shift that happens, and it seems like the new Half-Life game is definitely the monumental shift in the VR space. So
let's not diss the fact that the paper aesthetic is cool.
Yeah, it's nice.
Looking good. Yeah, it's a good looking game.
But it's a tech demo.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
a tech demo.
It's not a game, it's just like we've seen so many VR games be just tech demos.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah, and last but not least was a tease for Ghost of Tsushima, which they are showing at the Game Awards.
We finally hear something from this game again.
Yeah, I mean they've been making this game since Infamous First Light, which came out. So Second Son was a launch window PlayStation 4 game.
Yeah.
And then the same year, First Light came out, and they've been making this game ever since.
Yeah.
Damn. I'm done initiate one here. Like, have they announced like core gameplay stuff?
Quick run through. You're a cool guy. You're a samurai, more or less, or rather, you're a warrior during one of the great Japanese eras. And then you are in the middle of the God of War, and you are more or less indoctrinated into becoming a shinobi, a ninja. You become a
assassin thing.
Yeah, more like not specifically only assassin thing, also like intel guy. So it's a combination of a really cool looking combat simulation, but also stealth.
Okay.
Like they have this like they really made this very anime thing of like, and then you stand and like one of you have just been cut in half. They've made that into gameplay,
cool.
which it looks amazing.
So most people compare this to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, because both the trailers came out on the same day.
Did it both come out?
Yeah, like gameplay
were they
trailers
both
came
announced?
out.
Oh yeah,
at the same day.
Yeah, Sekiro was Sekiro was announced at the Game Awards, and then Tsushima was announced at the PlayStation Experience.
Yes. So the thing is, most people compare the two. Like, one is more like fantasy-driven, From Software's dark, gritty fantasy version of that period of Japan, and you play as a weird ninja guy, but you have a big sword and you fight anything. Whilst in the other game, Shadow, or Ghost of
Tsushima.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima. In that game, it is a bit more down to earth, but it has, as Dennis just mentioned, the really cool, weird anime stuff. Like, you throw smoke bombs at someone's feet, and they get disoriented, and then you stab them. And like you block a throwing star with your sword and stuff like that.
But it's no magic and no.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so it's more kind of so it's more like a historical simulation.
And it's beautiful.
I think if there is any magic, they would probably do the Uncharted approach to it.
Yeah.
Where it's like.
Okay, so it's already you're experiencing it from outside, sort of.
Yes, the game is beautiful. Like
it is utterly gorgeous.
Yes.
Like people are speculating that it is actually not running on a PlayStation 4. Like it's running on PlayStation 5.
It is also.
Which if this actually is running on PS4, it is mind blowing.
It's a stealth game with vibrant color schemes.
That's really good.
There's this one scene from, I think it was the original trailer, where you're standing on what's those trees called that are pink?
A cherry blossom tree.
Yeah, like you're standing under one of those trees, and it's like those like leaves are like falling around. They're covering the whole ground, and every single leaf is like actually an individual leaf. So when you're moving around, like they're flowing around, and the wind is flowing, and the sun is in the background, and you're seeing yourself and your enemy in like silhouettes. It's incredibly beautiful.
Nice.
One particular scene in the whole thing that I really remember from seeing the trailers is this really warm looking scene where you are going through a large wheat field when you're sneaking about and you're just walking around in your own vibrant colors. But the top part of all your stuff is almost the same color as the actual wheat. So when you walk about, you are not actually seen that well, and then you sneak up this big old pagoda house, and then you kill some guys in cool, glorious anime combat.
The lighting seemed to be amazing in that game, and like the physics, the physics-based simulations and stuff seemed really well done as well.
What I'm really excited about is that this is a samurai, like very Japanese style game, with very Western influence development,
like cowboy-esque duels as well.
So it's I don't mean like Western in that way. I mean more like it definitely feels like a game that was made in in the West.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's more like
where-
a reverse Dark Souls. So instead of a Eastern production company looking at the West sort of history and influences, you sort of have a Western company doing the same.
Yeah, and it also doesn't feel like it's westernized. Like, it doesn't feel like it's a Hollywoodization of something.
Mm-hmm.
It feels genuinely like you could tell someone like, yeah, this was made in Japan, and they would probably believe it. But at the same time, you can see how Sony is treating this game the same way they would treat The Last of Us or Uncharted or God of War, with a lot of fucking money and a lot of production and a lot of time, a lot of care, and a lot of letting a creative person create something, like create his creative vision and not impact it.
Yeah.
I think it looks really good. I'll have to see more like what the actual gameplay is before I can.
And the gameplay is usually split up in two parts. Yeah. The stealth sections, and also where you kill like a multitude of people, and then these almost cowboy-esque samurai showdowns when it's you against one single other person.
I do love cowboy-esque showdowns.
Yes.
I do love those.
Yes. So it looks very cool, and we're going to see the rest of the trailer at the Game Awards, which happens later tonight for us right now, but it will already have happened, obviously, when this comes out. So, very cool. So let's get into the Indie World presentation.
Oh, cool. Just Dreams also.
Dreams. Here.
Your biggest note.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dreams. Oh, yeah. Dreams will steal your heart. That's probably
that's the
Dreams.
one. Okay, the Dreams game.
Right.
Yeah,
so
cool.
the Kingdom Hearts expansion is not even listed here.
Oh.
Yeah, Dreams looks amazing.
Yeah, of course. It's like that's sort of like since we're game developers, it's sort of like our wet dream, I think, in that sense.
Yeah, it is Little Big Planet taken to the absolute extreme.
Yeah,
and
without the forced visual style.
Yeah.
And remember that Dreams has been in development since 2011.
Yeah.
When they released Little Big Planet 2.
Yeah. That's insane.
It is crazy. They've been making this... Like, this game was initially announced for PlayStation 3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's... I mean, it seems like it's... For sure it's chose, because, I mean, as far as the experiences they have been able to craft for the demo, I mean, just the multitude of styles and, like, everything, how you can do everything. It seems... Yeah.
Also, like, the way you sculpt models in that game is actually very revolutionary.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can create like a shape of something, and then you can copy it and paste it into other things, and then it like creates a new model out of all these shapes.
Yeah,
it's like that kind of thing is very hard to do in real 3D modeling programs, and they just do it so effortlessly in Dreams.
And just like how high resolution or something, like how high resolution the meshes must be, but still that it's running that well. This like the optimization must be insane.
And you can animate them properly. Like the game just automatically applies animatable anomaly.
Like, skin weight. Yeah, it's I don't know.
What's it called?
Anatomically? No?
Anatomy, right?
Yeah.
And also, they've also said that they've created their own basic version of GarageBand, so you can make music and you can do sounds and everything. Yeah. And like I said this before, and I've said this multiple times before. I don't think this should be a PlayStation 4 game. Yeah. I think they are wasting the potential of this product by putting it on PS4. They could put a client on PS4 where you can play the games, but I think this should be on PC.
Yeah.
Because if you have, right now, there are level creators like Mario Maker, and there is real game development. And in the middle, there are things like RPG Maker.
Yep.
And if they place Dreams in this space, they could create a new era of the step between Mario Maker and game development.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised, like if it is as like we'll see for sure, like when it's dropped, so we can see like the feature set and like how everything works, like how well fleshed out they are. Because like as you realize, like some of the time, since they have had so much time and effort to spend on doing these things, it's sort of like how much time you have to invest in Little Big Planet to make the really amazing stuff. It's sort of like, so depending on how easy and how good stuff you can make easily in Dreams, I think will be a big part of how successful it will be in that space. But I think for sure, like if it's as powerful as it seems, like I'm sure they will expand on it.
Yeah, and like you could let people actually export the game.
Yeah.
And like
you could sell the games.
Yeah, like it is. Yeah, I have. That's my only thing with Dreams. I am just very, very afraid that Sony, who is they're very focused on making things for PlayStation, that they are going to ruin the potential of this game.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a chance for that, and I think like in general also like how they're gonna make back the investment of actually like developing this game, because it has to have had like a huge budget. Like when you see how long it's been in development and like as you said, like the tool sets that's been created and stuff, it's sort of mind-boggling.
I look forward to see what type of support this game will have in the future. Like. What is release Dreams versus Dreams after a year?
Yeah.
Will anything change? Will they add stuff? Or is it just like updates or whatever? Because if this thing works, they could easily just port it over to the next system they have.
Oh yeah. I mean, no doubt Dreams is coming to PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
There is no way Sony would let that investment just stay on a console that is being replaced next year. If anything, like, does it even... Oh, yeah, it's coming out February 14th, 2020. So...
That's insane.
No, wait. Wait, so does that mean that Kingdom Hearts is not coming out February 14th, 2020? I am very confused.
Yeah.
Right now. Anyway, whatever. It's... but yeah, I 100% think that...
It's coming out 2020.
Yeah.
Soon, trademark.
Soon. Okay, so let's move on to Indie World.
Yay!
So, first of all, the most hype announcement, in my opinion, which was Spore Story.
Oh, yeah. I love Golf Story.
It's a perfect evolution of Golf Story.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about it.
It's sports, the game.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like they still, like, the base mechanics still seems to be very much sort of you hit a thing and the ball that reacts. The big difference now seems that you can actually do more like the reactionary. Something gets thrown at you and then you react by punching it. And a little bit with the football that you can run with it, I guess. But I like it. It seems like a really good evolution of the system. And it seems like the thing that I latched onto the most in the trailer was probably how much more like interactable the environment seemed to the things you were doing. So, for example, you had like this area where you were supposed to knock out the security cameras with a golf shot. That's sort of a thing that they explored in the first one, but now it seems to be that like a requirement for exploration is almost like environmental puzzle solving.
I will be disappointed if this phenomena of all sports combined is not called sports ball.
Yes. It's almost like Calvin Ball from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yes.
Where you just invite... I really like the one where you basically had the guy shooting the tennis ball to you holding a baseball bat into a soccer goal.
Yes.
The sort of really crazy stuff going on.
And it's across a tennis net as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's I think the possibilities are immense for that game. And I think just getting the like if they're doing what I hope they're doing, that basically is just polishing and making sure that the exploration of the overworld is even more fun than the first one, I think they could have like a slam dunk.
Yes.
For sure.
If they have basketball, that is.
Oh, true. They didn't show the basketball. Maybe it's like a DLC or something.
So next up we have Streets of Rage 4.
Heck yeah.
Nice animations, but I have actually no connection to that franchise.
I haven't played
Shout out
Streets of Rage.
to Matt, who works on the game.
Yay! Hey, Matt.
What I really like about the games from this studio, they're making Streets of Rage 4. They also are making what's that frisbee game?
Yeah. I'm
no
mind
idea.
blank.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah.
It's more or less tennis, but to death with murder frisbees.
It's cool.
Oh.
Windjammers.
Windjammers
2.
That's the name. of
That's
it.
the one.
Which is an awesome game. I'm just having a big old mind blank.
And they also did they do the remake of Wonder Boy, or did they do the new game? They did one of the two. Basically what they're doing is they're doing these like classical style games, but they don't use pixel art, which I'm like, thank you. Pixel art is so overdone right now. I just want to see games with like full resolution artwork.
Yeah, they have heavy static 3D models, which is that they don't animate them fully in like 30 or 60 frames per second when it comes to the actual fluidity of the animations. However, they do it in separate stages. Like, for example, for the new character that we saw today on this, on the indie, he has static movement, which is that he has like actually just 6 different poses through an entire attack, which emulates the same movement back in Streets of Rage. But now he has, as Dennis mentioned, full resolution actual model and 3D structures. It's a perfect feeling from the old Streets of Rage, but it's a new, better look in the new actual proper 3D models.
I just really hope more games stop doing pixel art.
I mean, it's got its place, and I think the biggest pro of just pixel art is that it's sort of low cost to make as well. You can do it faster, and you don't have to be like a master illustrator to be able to craft it. But yeah, I agree. It's more like if you look at Ori and the Blind Forest and those kinds of games, we have more like a painterly or more artistic art style, I think.
Like I think that there's something awe-astounding with really good pixel art.
Yeah.
Like, you did this in pixel art. And the first thing that you think is like, whoa, you are really good at pixel art. And the second thing you think is like, yeah, the guys who did Blasphemous, who made a really good-looking pixel art game, why didn't they just make it in like with hand-drawn animations?
Yeah, like if you look at a game like Owlboy, that game has such high resolution pixel art that why didn't you just draw it?
Yeah.
Like, why did you just draw it? Like, it would be easier to draw this than to do it in pixel
But I mean,
art.
it's like an artistic choice, and I think it's I sort of as the old codger in the group here, I think I still appreciate a good pixel art game, but I do agree that it's overused, it's oversaturated, and I think it's hard to stand out if you're doing a pixel art game. So yeah, I agree, it's better to sort of skew towards the more like painterly artistic.
Speaking of pixel art games, Axiom Verge 2.
Oh yeah, near and dear to my heart at least. I love the first one. I think
I played a little bit of it.
Yeah. But it's not your kind of game, really, is it?
I mean, it's a Metroidvania.
Yeah.
I like Hollow Knight.
Ah, true.
But I played it back when it was only on PS4, and it didn't feel like a place where I wanted to play it.
No, I can see that. It's like, it's for sure, like, it's more old school, it seems, in its decision making. Although, like, the cool thing is how interesting and fluid the weapons are in that game, and like how different they feel from one another. So it'd be interesting to see what he does to like evolve the concept in a sense. Because what we saw in the trailer, I feel is sort of more like it's building upon like slight tweaks to the things we already saw in the first Axiom Verge, but then they hint at this sort of like when he goes into the rift and it sort of gets the jittery kind of error message kind of looks. It's sort of it hints at that there's going to be a whole different layer to the game that they're not showing right now.
It will feel like it earns the name Axiom Verge 2.
Yeah.
In the sense that it will be sort of the same game, but it will now feature a whole new thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they go the approach of basically starting from scratch again, so you have to find all the power-ups again, or if they will start you off in more like a further along state where you have some of the unlocked abilities already from the start.
A Metroid fusion.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a weird reference. There's a lot of other games that I could have referenced.
So next up was Dauntless, which is a Monster Hunter style game.
Yeah. I've heard mixed things about it. Sort of what I've heard so far. I haven't played it myself, but I heard sort of it's like a jankier Monster Hunter.
With a certain artistic design.
It does an interesting art style. It's more like Fortnite-ish.
Yeah. It will look a lot better than Monster Hunter within 10 years. However, people will not play it in 10 years.
Yeah. It's the kind of art style you do when you can't do photorealistic art.
Yeah. I mean, it's
photorealistic has its place and cartoonish has its place.
Yeah.
However,
a lot of studios use it though because they can't afford or can't do.
Yeah, it will look a lot better
kind of art.
But I think also it's like I think it's like it's the thing that's sort of in right now. Sort of almost the sort of more stylized, not really Pixar, but sort of inspired by that. It's sort of like I think it's just so hot.
Yeah.
Like I think people resonate with that style right now.
It's also because it looks really cool.
Oh yeah, I mean
if it's done well.
Yeah. It's sort of, and as you said, it's sort of easier to make the assets as well. So it's sort of like it's a cheaper option to make things look really good.
The one sad thing about a lot of games, especially Dauntless, since Dauntless has, as with most other games that chooses to be like this, they have these extreme armor sets. Like in almost every other, let's go as a group and kill the big beast and then skin them and, get new armor and whatever. And also just MMORPGs. I don't mean like World of Warcraft also. I mean like any type of, we are 10 people, we're going out and doing cool things. They usually have big old grandiose armor and weapons and whatever. But they don't do the thing that a cartoonish art style allows you to do, which is they can make overly extreme character designs. Instead, they leave it open so that anyone can feel cool with their thing. They don't do that. Or rather, they do the open thing.
Yeah.
They don't go for like, oh, you can make a guy that's proportioned like a freaking Dorito.
Yeah.
When they could do that.
Yeah. And also animations, I think they sort of they skip a bit on like being able to do some of the more like squash and stretch and sort of like actually playing around with the scale, sort of like they do in Overwatch. But you could always do it more extremely since it's more like cartoony. Yeah,
Overwatch is an example of this kind of art style that is just very well executed.
Yeah, because they use all of the like tools at their disposal. Oh, so because it's this art style, we can do this and this, then let's do it, sort of learning from the masters. A lot of like classic Disney animation techniques are used in
fighting
Overwatch.
games have always used this in that they have some fighting games try to be realistic and well they do their thing, but other games like for example if you look back at the PS3 era, you have Street Fighter 4. In Street Fighter 4 you have stuff like character move their arms in ways that humans are not supposed to be able to do that. And stuff like this person's hands are grotesquely large according to their head size. But that allowed you to have actually really impactful momentum. And I don't see that in Dauntless.
No, it's sort of like, but it's sort of a smaller studio, I think, and like it does take a lot of extra time and just skills in doing rigs and stuff to be able to do the more squash and stretch. So I get.
So next up is the Talos Principle Deluxe Edition, which I've seen this game multiple times, and it has never brought me in. It looks boring. And it looks boring to play.
But that's the problem. It's like almost looks like a Unreal kind of demo scene.
Yeah. It's just the art is so boring.
Yeah.
It's so bland. Like Portal is a game that even like obviously the gameplay looks cool, looks fun in Portal, but even like the art, like the world looks weird and intriguing. That you're pulled into it, but like this just looks bland.
Yeah, but I mean to sort of sing some of its praises. I played some of the game, but as I stated earlier, I have a little problem with motion sickness from 3D games, and this was unfortunately one that I can't play for extended periods. But the story and the actual like character development and the puzzles are really amazing in the Telos Principle.
It's a game for people who like to lean back, sit on a couch, perhaps with someone else, and try to solve these puzzles.
Yeah.
It's not a game for a person that wants to sit down and have a really good time with their game.
I mean,
but then I would say The Witness does a better job at that.
Yeah, but
the world is beautiful, and I remember playing The Witness, and then like someone coming by and like, oh yeah, like, and I like try to explain like the basic rule set, and then we would like try to solve these puzzles.
Yeah.
I thought it was just way more effective.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's more like it's almost like a 3D programmer art game, because it seems like they use a lot of assets that they could use. It's not like. It's sort of like the main focus of that game is not the art styles of it. It's sort of like the game that you have to discount the surface and almost just go into it for the more like narrative and puzzle experience. But it's a hard sell, I think.
But hey, now you can get it on PS4 if you want it.
Switch.
You mean?
Yeah.
I think it's
already out on PS4?
Yeah, it's I think it's everywhere.
Yeah, you can get it on the Switch now.
Yay!
Yeah, you can play it wherever you want. You can be boring wherever you want, I guess.
Not to keep bragging on this game, but I hate when games come to a new platform and they just call it the deluxe edition.
But
I just want it to be clean.
You don't like the
it's just
the ultimate climax second edition coming.
I think like A Hat in Time did this too. Like I just wanted to say A Hat in Time, not like A Hat in Time special edition or Nintendo Switch edition or whatever. Like just say A Hat in Time, please. Like I want it clean.
I guess they want to like punctuate that they sort of have more content, but I agree. It's like
Yeah. Next up is the Survivalists. So we were talking about pixel art before.
Yeah.
This is an example of when they do pixel art, but they don't understand how pixels work.
Yeah, you love it, right, Dennis? Tell us about it. Your love for this art style.
No.
I mean, I think as when we were discussing, I like the idea of it, but I agree with the detail complaints you have. Like, for example, with the pixel scaling differentiation between the objects and stuff, and that's a big no-no. But I think it's kind of effective. It looks interesting.
The pop-up book look is cool.
Yeah.
Pixel art is pretty good for most of the survival type games, since it usually allows you to at least go in the XY axis, and that one is all you need in a survival game like this. However, I fully agree. It's a thing I am really annoyed by most games that does it, where the pixel size are different.
Yeah, I heard you when you were explaining pixel art to the first year students. You really, really underlined this part.
Yeah.
Which made me happy.
Yes. I mean, it's so important for cohesion. Otherwise, it just feels like it's two different games.
It feels like it's a bad art. Not even like RPG Maker. Like it seems like a person picked up Game Maker, didn't know how to program it, and just threw in cool assets.
Yeah. Just bought assets and they had different scales and stuff. Yeah. It's sort of it makes it seem sloppy, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Looks sort of unprofessional, but this game will sell. It's a survival game where you can craft stuff and make your own houses. People will buy this game.
I like the monkey programming aspect. It seemed interesting.
Yeah. Monkey bodies.
Next up was Gleamlight, which is a case of a good art style.
Yes.
But not great animation.
Yeah, it's sort of a shame. It seemed like, as you said when you compared it to the Hollow Knight art style.
Yeah.
Like, more like just like a traditional, just bone-rigged animation
instead
compared to
hand.
Instead of hand-drawn.
From the developers of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night.
Yes.
Oh.
What?
Well.
So it's supposedly, it can have really good gameplay.
Yeah, but like Bloodstained looked really janky as well, though, animation-wise. Yeah. So it's sort of understandable. They don't seem to have a good animator.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, and maybe they will listen to this podcast, and maybe then they will just drag your name in dirt.
Please come and teach us for us.
I mean, just a quick reminder, like, I mean, if we this is a podcast, and sometimes we'll be like exaggerating for comedic purpose or whatever when we talk about a game, like, and it's never anything personal. If you've made one of these games and we dragged on it, like, we don't hate you as a person. We don't, like, you just try to take the feedback in a positive light and try to improve and be better.
Come at me, give me the worst stuff, whatever.
Except Freya, she will kill you.
She will. Yeah.
I'll put the straw through your neck.
Oh god.
Okay. But one of the things that I thought was a weird thing to note in the reveal for Gleamlight is that they said that the game doesn't need a UI.
Oh yeah.
That was weird.
That was the weird trailer I mentioned earlier. Like, that trailer feels like it's really unprofessionally made, because it feels like a pitch trailer.
Almost.
It's like they say like in this, but they say
like a selling point.
And when like you may be asking, where's the UI? It's like, I did not ask that because it's a trailer. And there's like, in this game, you don't need the UI because we know what you think. And it's like, no.
There's a lot of games that doesn't actually require a physical UI bar. And it's not a new thing. Like, if their character glows red if they're damaged, or like if their sword glows blue when they can do the special attack again, that's the UI. That is a UI. That's the user interface.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And but I mean, we have to wait and see, because like Bloodstained, even though of its graphical shortcomings, is a really good game. Yeah. And this one could be as well, even though it's sort of because of the animation, it doesn't give a great first impression.
Maybe they will look better in that.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. A lot of people say that, but like when they show it at this point, it's usually not in a finished state.
It wasn't that far of a release date, right? I don't know.
Early 2020.
Yeah. So.
Next up was a game that intentionally has bad animation, and that's Skatebird.
Oh yeah!
Heck yeah! Actual Tony Hawk where you can play as Hawk.
Yeah. It seems interesting. I mean, the love for it, what I saw online was really.
This is so cool.
Skatebird is so stupid and amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
This is the type of games we need.
Yeah.
Like really stupid games that just does one thing really well.
Yeah.
That doesn't care if people will buy it or not. They will just make cool games.
Yeah. And it seems like a love letter for something like Tony Hawk.
Yeah. And Skate.
Yeah. I have a friend who there's one game that he loves. Or no, he loves two games. It's Burnout Paradise, specifically Burnout Paradise.
That's good. Good choice.
And he doesn't like the rest of the Burnout franchise, just Paradise. And the Skate franchise. Specifically 1 and 2. 3 is fine, but 1 and 2 are the good ones. Specifically 2 is the great one. So whenever a new skateboard game is announced, I send a picture to him and say, "Hey, they announced Skateboard."
Nice.
So that happened with Skatebird, and also the skateboard sport in Mario Sonic at the games.
Of course. Nice.
So I do this anytime there's a skateboard
What's his thoughts
game announcement.
on Skatebird?
He does not like indie games.
Okay.
Come on, Skatebird! You can give him a little Tony Hawk hat.
To be fair, it seemed to be more like Tony Hawk in structure than Skate.
Yeah.
More like the sort of you go up a ramp, you do the trick, then you sort of you don't compose the tricks as much, it seems.
Yeah, that's also a thing. Like if you tell him like, oh look, it's a skateboard game and it's more based on Tony Hawk than Skate, he will not be happy. And I love doing that.
Because there are such different styles, just how you approach the game.
Yeah.
One is more like a trick sandbox where you
I hope they will have punk and ska in this one. Solely due to the fact that I want this game to just be Tony Hawk in disguise.
Didn't they say something like the sweet lo-fi beats or something, like they were gonna have some chill music things going on?
Maybe they did.
I don't know.
And tiny clothing.
Oh yeah, tiny clothes. Of course, yeah. You have to have the pre word of tiny there.
I love how it just looks like it's a bird like asset they just got online and didn't bother to animate it, just standing there looking straight ahead while he's going to the left.
He did the beak kind of going down when he did the grab tricks. So that was really nice.
So next up was Bacon Switch, which that game, like, I don't really get what it is.
Yeah, I was super confused. It was like get something into the oven.
Yeah.
Right?
It's one of these games where there's a multitude of these games where you play as a chef in the kitchen.
I would call this an Overcooked like.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is an Overcooked like, except now it's versus.
Yeah, and it seemed like it seems like the more chaotic sort of party game, more party game-ish version of Overcooked. Whereas Overcooked had more like a rigid structure on top of it, and the silliness happened within that structure. This seems more like, throw things at each other. So I don't know. I'm more skeptical towards this one, but we'll see.
That's more or less all I have to say.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say either. Super Mash. This is a video game that makes video games.
This is the natural evolution of that one game that was literally a game where you unlock game features.
Yeah.
What's it called?
DLC? No, not that one.
Yeah, that
DLC
one.
Quest?
Yes. That is literally that you have to...
You play the game to unlock...
Yeah, to unlock game features, and within due time you go like, you have unlocked 3D art.
I mean, like the potential for jank in each unique game is so high, but there could be some interesting. It's almost like, the one where you have the 12,000 monkeys just sitting in typewriters in a room, and then like after 5 years you get a Shakespeare novel or Shakespeare play. Yeah. It's sort of that thing that you probably will have to like do a shit ton of different like restarts of the games until you get sort of a decent one.
So what I wonder the most is this a game? Is this actually a game that makes games, or have they just created something for every possible mixture?
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I understood it, it's like every time you even create the same, it sort of it has a library of different stuff that is within each genre, and then it sort of picks different ones and then mash them together. So I as far as I understood, even if you take JRPG and platformer, if you do it like a bunch of time, it will still spit out like different art themes, different names, different like storylines, different stuff that happens.
We did actually see that a bunch of sprites looked like they came from different things.
Oh yeah. Talking of mixing art styles.
Yeah, I mean this game is kind of intentionally doing that. I feel.
One thing.
Well, they had to. Yeah. There's no way.
A thing that I feel about this game, that this is a game that there's a lot of games out there that are just cool game. They added a DLC to it.
Yeah. And
it's just additional content. This is literally a game where you can just add another game genre as a DLC.
Yeah.
Or like, update, we added wrestling games.
Yeah, and it seems like, it seems with the developer cards that you unlocked as well, like sort of that control the chaos.
Yeah.
Maybe you can like then more like cherry pick which mechanics are going into the games or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm for sure gonna probably buy it just to try it out, since it seems like a really fun experiment. But I don't think it is gonna be a good game.
Sports ball sims.
Yeah. Or it's like Spore as well. Sort of these high concept games that looks interesting, but I don't think they will deliver in the end. But for me as like a game developer, it's really interesting.
Cool idea.
Yeah. So I'm gonna check it out, but probably won't be good.
Yeah. So next up was Sail Forth, which is a procedurally generated pirate game.
Yeah.
Which looks cool.
Yeah, you build your fleet and stuff. I like the more meta elements of those games where you sort of, when you create an empire or build a fleet or that sort of a thing, it speaks to me.
Sadly, most games that has actually allowed you to be like, you are a cool sailor, you sail about and do cool stuff, has sadly either been a part of another game,
Mm-hmm.
such as Assassin's Creed Black Flag,
Mm.
or it has been stuff like Sea of Thieves, which is more like a multiplayer game where you run about as your group and you do stuff.
Yeah.
This is you sit back
Mm-hmm.
and you can have your little RTS going where you control your little armada of ships. That is a bit more approachable, according to me.
Yeah. I think it looks interesting. I mean, it depends on, like, I would like to see it go more like a Sid Meier's Pirates if we go back a bunch of years.
Oh, yeah.
Where you have sort of like the open sea and you just do different quests and you have a main storyline that you can follow or not.
Yeah.
I think it could be interesting. We'll have to see. For me, all of those games sort of, it depends on how the meta aspect is handled. Like, how is the base building? How is the progression from mission to mission? Because that will hook me or it will, well, not hook me. Basically, I'm a huge fan of the sort of, you're doing a mission, you're progressing, you're building something better, you have more stuff now, sort of the risk versus reward, that kind of a thing.
Yeah. I'm tired. So next up was Murder by Numbers, which is basically Picross and murder mystery in the same game.
Yeah. I mean, interesting depending on how they implement it.
Picross, visual novel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they do enough with the integration between the two, it could be interesting. But if it's only a visual novel interspersed with Picross, then I'm out. I'm not interested.
Yeah, same here. Like, Picross is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like puzzle games.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna put a bunch of anime characters in the front of that and tell me you need to pay attention to the story, and I will gladly pay attention to the story, but not if it's in the way of the one good feature in this entire game.
Yeah.
If it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, they need to do something Phoenix Wright-esque for me. They had to have some kind of good integration between the two. Otherwise, not interested.
So you're in luck because it was composed by the same guy who composed Phoenix Wright.
Oh yeah, although the music is probably not what will hook me. They need a gameplay twist, something to really, really get me interested.
Yeah. So next up was Liberated, which was a comic book style game.
You had some accurate views on that one, Dennis.
Yeah.
They should not have gone with 3D.
Yeah. So it feels like a lot of people have said Comic Zone was a good idea. Why have people not made another Comic Zone? And they were like, let's do it.
But I liked Comic Zone. It looked more interesting than this.
Yeah. But it's like it's like how back in the day they made South Park games, but then they made South Park Stick of Truth, which actually looked like South Park.
Yep.
And here it feels like they're making this really cool graphic novel game, but then they have gameplay that doesn't look like a graphic novel.
Yeah, more like Inside or something. And I'm mainly worried about pacing as well. Like they have the sort of like the really heavily like the Comic Zone, it was like the framing was the comics, but like there wasn't much like narrative done within the comic panels. It was more like a short intro, then you were into the action, and then they had some cool interactions with a comic book thing where you could break through pages and that sort of a thing. I didn't see any of that here. It was more like you had a really like fixed, just a comic book narrative, yes, no choices, that sort of thing, and then you get like plunged into an action sequence.
Yeah. And it's an awesome idea to make a game that is apparently a comic book when you do it.
Yeah.
However, they should have added some at least some reason as to why the gameplay is made in a comic book, otherwise than just a visual presentation.
Yeah, that's a cool thing as well. Like as you, like with Comic Zone, like that it's actually like also breaking the fourth wall, where you're actually a comic book artist going into a comic, and then they sort of play around with that thing, and you're sort of like, oh, why are you putting me in this situation, sort of a thing.
Yeah,
it's only like a Deadpool kind of a feel for that game, whereas this seems more like it's only like to tell the story. They aren't intending to actually like incorporate any of the comic book aspects into the actual gameplay.
I sadly feel like this game will be forgotten.
I mean, it looks really good. It looks really good.
The art is amazing.
Yeah,
like
everything.
The thing
really
is, like
good.
the 2D art and the 3D art is both awesome in their own aspect. They just don't.
Yeah, they don't
mesh very well.
Yeah,
I mean,
they've done a great job into trying to make them mesh.
Yeah,
but it's just like this little space that they weren't able to cross.
I think it's also like it has to do with how much time they had to put into the 3D modeling and characterization and lighting and shading and stuff, because it's hard to make like a good, like really good 2D shader. Okay.
And we had a boyfriend dungeon.
Heck yeah.
Which is
I've been following this game for a bit.
Dating sim dungeon crawler.
Yes.
I'm really interested. I think it's going to be really, really good. I think it's also good from like a inclusivity perspective. It seems to be that sort of a game. So I think it looks good, and the gameplay seems decent. I think it seems like almost like a Cat Quest kind of a, if that's a reference that someone anyway, like that sort of simplified, really anyone can pick up and play sort of dungeon crawl mixed with like a, so I think it could be good.
It has the look and actually the gameplay. If one has followed it, they will know that the gameplay is also more or less pick up the game, you can play a dungeon, you can then put it down. You don't need to be pulled into it. A lot of the attraction is not only it's not simple, it's easy. There's a big old difference. So I think it's a good person's first dungeon crawler game. But also cute guys.
Yeah. That's never a bad thing.
Then we had Dreamscaper.
Oh yeah, this one. I was so like in two minds.
Top-down shooter, brawler, and dungeon crawler.
Yeah, it sort of had like this procedurally generated dreamscape levels and stuff. I like at first I was sort of disinterested, but the more I looked at it, the more it seemed interesting.
Yeah.
It looked sort of like the actual like gameplay sometimes seemed kind of janky, but at other points it seemed like it had a lot of complexity to it. So I'm intrigued.
I don't really. It had some cool visuals. I like that part when I don't know if you were like going into a dream or going out of a dream, and the world like
built itself. Yeah.
That looked cool, but
I sort of some of the gameplay things as well, like when you had like your day-to-day relationships factoring into your abilities in the dream world. Sort of, I think it could be interesting. I would have to know more though. It seemed like it could be either really, really good or really, really bad.
Yeah.
And then last up is Oddworld Stranger's Wrath HD.
No comment.
Yeah, they add that one game where you play as that one weird type of creature that has like 4 legs and you are the last one of them, and it's a weird discussion on corporate markets.
And, and you shoot weird creatures.
Yes, you shoot weird creatures. It's an Oddworld game after all.
You are a weird creature. You shoot weird creatures with weird creatures.
Yes. So if you guys like that kind of stuff, that's an old game that is now refurbished onto the Switch.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was never a big fan of the Oddworld franchise in general.
Yeah, same. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. We've talked about...
The great finish.
We've talked about the state of play and indie world.
Yeah.
So after this, how do you feel? How would you rank both of the events separately next to the other events? Like let's start with state of play. How was this state of play next to the other state of plays before? Personally, I think this is the best one they've done so far.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, like the pacing of the event and like how they showed stuff, not necessarily exactly what they showed.
Actually, I take that back. Last time they showed Last was Part 2. So
yeah, okay.
that one was better.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, it's like I said, I think they like the formula is evolving and it's getting to a better place, and I think they sort of learn a lot from each other as well, because like the structures between like both the indie world and the state of play, they were really similar in how it was structured.
Yeah, it's state of play. Like they tried their own thing in the beginning, then they realized that didn't work, and they've just like copied more and more from Nintendo with every new one. And now they finally realized that they need to announce their final announcement, because otherwise because the thing of like the one more thing is so integral to announcement shows that you need to announce your last thing or people will be disappointed.
Yeah, it's sort of it's become an expectation, which is sad in and of itself, but it's sort of it's become part of it.
It's like when you watch a Marvel movie and there's not a post-credit scene.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that has to be there for
They've set the precedence of that being there, and if you don't have it, it's not good. And it doesn't mean you have to have more announcements. No. You just have to announce your last announcement.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and one more thing, kind of. Yeah.
And usually it should be like one of your best announcements.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like if you look at it from more an outside perspective, I also heard that during the Nintendo event, that for some reason they wanted Smash characters announced. Like like I heard that the live chat became kind of toxic with people.
Oh yeah, that's so with every Nintendo event. Regardless of what it is, people will be like, "Oh, they didn't announce, they didn't show Metroid Prime 4. They didn't announce the next Smash character. This is an indie presentation. What did you expect?"
Then again, by the way, one final thing is the one moment where you can actually break away from the theme.
So but you also don't want to do that because you're setting a bad precedent.
Then you're going, but look at us, we're doing a cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, as more of like the indie lover in this group, because I do love AAAs, but I've steered towards more the shorter, more the bite-sized. You can do like have the shorter progression cycle as well. Sort of like in a lot of the indie games now, you have you start off with you're from zero to hero in like an hour, basically. So for me, I found the Nintendo one to be more interesting, just because they had a lot of the games I was looking for.
So how do you feel like this in the indie world was next to other indie presentations that they've done before? And this includes like Indie World and the previous names of them, which was Nindy's Showcase. Personally, I feel like the first Nindy Showcase is still the best one they've done so far.
Easily.
That one was insane. And since then, they've been kind of disappointing. I kind of expected to see Hollow Knight, Silk Song in this one. And
a lot of people did,
Yeah. And I kind of doubt that they're even going to show the game, even though I feel like Hollow Knight didn't really get its proper due until it came to Switch.
Yeah. I think also later it was a perfect platform. Yeah, I mean, I think that like as a show as on a whole, I think they had some really good announcements from me personally. But if you look at it like over like something else, I think that not the strongest show in that sense. But just for me, just for Sports Story and for Axiom Verge 2, they sort of made the show in that with those two announcements.
Cool. Well, that was it for this episode of Rebreak Radio. So where can people find you if you want to be found?
They just can't. I'm not big on social media, actually.
I'm at Twitter at saltyjob. That's my Twitter hashtag. I draw stuff. That's about it.
Yep. Cool. You can find me at Dennis_Lofgren on Twitter, where I tweet about video games, Apple, and Taylor Swift. And I assume that most of you, if you follow me, you're going to have an exponential increase in tweets about those three things. So, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.